I got hired as the party's national political organizer. This was a result of a decision by the steering committee that that there was a need to actually have some more dedicated staff to concentrate on organizing for all the obvious reasons. One of my responsibilities at the time was to try to sort of begin to create a sort of a bird's eye view of what was the lay of the land. It's not something that had been done before, and I believe maybe John, correct me if I'm wrong. Was there like a political organizer in the past? Okay, so basically, I had to hit the road running. Clearly, this was right after the end of the electoral cycle. The party was experiencing a huge influx of potential new members. We were navigating sort of some ideological challenges of our own because of that. And what I began to realize is that we were basically navigating without a compass. In other words, they had not, in my understanding, there had never really been a comprehensive needs and capacity assessment done across the states to sort of figure out where we were as a party. What are some of the running themes that you begin to identify in order to sort of hopefully develop some form of comprehensive, strategy, a national strategy. Clearly, the party has, the national party has limitations given how we are structured, but there is still the need to be able to provide some critical support. So once I realized that there was a need for this needs and capacity assessment, I began to work in trying to draft one. Another thing, we did not even have necessarily a complete list of state leaders, right? So this begins to paint the picture that perhaps the strength of decentralization can also start to work against you when you do have a national structure. And when the mechanisms that connect the federation, which is basically what we are, a federation of parties, to the national party are not necessarily functioning, and we are basically trying to create a network. We're trying to enable capacity to that's what the committees are. Whether it's the CCC or the fundraising committee, we are trying to work with the parties to sort of generate greater capacity. But it's practically impossible to know what kind of capacity you need to generate if you don't know the need. And so I bombarded our poor state leaders as if they didn't have enough with like an insane 30-question survey that, I had to beg for them to answer, including people who were my own comrades, some of you in this room. I said, I said, no more gnocchi for you if you do not respond. So actually, it turned out to be real good. We produced 21 states responded, and some states. Anybody who basically caught wind that we're doing the survey, Delaware. Anybody here from Delaware? Okay, so I think Delaware sent us 17 survey responses or something, probably like the whole membership of this. No, we got 3. I think we got 3, didn't we? So.
That was before I was in there. David would know more about it.
It was fantastic, and so what we began to realize. It's good because we have, if you look at the map, it's very representative. And we have, I think, almost all of the critical regions represented here. New York didn't respond? Travis? No, wow. Okay, so I'll talk to Gloria about that. No more gnocchi for Gloria either. All right. I'm gonna be doing a lot less cooking this year. So here we go. So we ask some basic questions, some of the basic stuff that begins to paint the picture. I mean, simple things. Does your state hold annual meetings? They do. Now, does that mean that the meetings kind of have the kind of organizational sort of capacity that we would wish? That really, is not going to be found out, through a survey, but, we at least figure out, that except for the states that you see here listed, which I guess is what, just Nebraska, right? And Nevada meets online, but all the other states basically, do have annual meetings. Now, this was a critical question for us. Yeah.
My number's wrong. We're at 21.
Wrong.
I
Okay.
would take 36, but
Well, these numbers came.
that was my fault as the one who filled out the survey properly.
I cannot control state leadership inflating their numbers in the hopes that they're going to get more brownie points or something. So this is more gnocchi. So this is definitely what we receive directly from the states. So we can fix it. So I mean, I'm not going to fix it now, but all right. So but it's clearly critical to sort of have this question answered, and the fact that there are several states that are not listed here that did not respond to the survey that I have myself inquired about, and they didn't really know. So, in having a conversation with a member of the newly founded structure development working group, that's kind of what they're beginning to understand. It's like it's going to be very, very hard to sort of work around an organizational strategy when the structures are kind of not necessarily there from where, you can actually say, yes, we know exactly how many chapters we have. So it's...
Hey, can I jump in on this?
Yes.
Texas had an interesting response. Laura filled this out, Laura Palmer, and she said there's 254 counties in Texas. So, the short answer to your question is we have 8 locals, but there's a much longer and deeper answer to your question, which is that we've got people in our database from over 150 different counties in Texas, and it's impossible for us to really turn that into 150 chapters. That's our real challenge. It's so spread out, and it's a challenge already to keep those 8 locals with enough momentum and people going to meetings. So what do you do about these?
Right.
These
Well,
all over the state, and her advice was this is an opportunity for the national party to help directly facilitate the job.
And because the levels of capacity vary widely, right? So we have different states at different stages of development. And that creates a challenge when you are trying to somehow provide as much assistance and support as you can. And I don't believe that this can happen from the national party alone. It's going to have to happen through collaboration and mutual aid amongst the state party leadership, which is why, I have very recently some of you may have, if you're state chair, you may have received an invitation to join, the National Political Organizing Collaborative, right? What that is meant to do is to start addressing some of the organizational gaps and incapacity amongst the states. And we're going to get to, as this thing progresses, we'll start to see some of the issues that Travis just raised. This one is interesting, right? Now, you guys tell me, what is wrong with this question even? How many registered Green Party members are there in your state?
I can't register.
How do you know about 22 states do not register by party.
There we go. So we start to encounter a problem, somebody else was saying something else.
Right, how do you register for your party? Depends on what you consider a member. Is that a registered Green? Is it someone who pays dues? Is it someone who's an activist who goes to your
Right.
activities?
What says 22 states don't?
Do not register to vote by party.
So how,
You just register to vote.
here's the open primary.
That's
thing?
why Bernie Sanders is an independent.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael.
In addition to those 22 states that don't register, in a state like North Carolina, we do register, but we're not on the ballot. We don't have any registered.
And in Virginia, there are only two political parties by statute, Democrat and Republican. Those are the only two parties you can register for, party affiliation, otherwise you get.
So to me, as a political organizer, and perhaps for folks who may share some of this experience in their own political trajectory, I believe that a member of a political party it's not someone who votes for that party necessarily or is registered to vote for that party. Because what we're after is militancy, right? We need party militants. And what that means is that people who actually, are members of the party and that in one way or another are politically invested in the growth and the development of that party. Now, I believe that in conversations that I've had, there is a lot of emphasis on the, and perhaps this is hurting us. The idea that we can say that, there are, 40,000 Greens, right, in Maine. Now, let's think about that for a second, because I crunched some numbers, and I figured, and we can tie it into this idea of dues. Now, if we have like 40,000 Greens, and let's say that 20,000 of those were actually members, and that out of those 20,000, they were paying dues of like $10 each, we would have like $300,000 a year. Now, I'm not actually 20,000 times 10, it's like $200,000 a year, right? And so all of a sudden, Bruce and Howie are like glowing in my mind, and I'm thinking, wow, so now, yes.
A couple decades ago, I talked to Oregon, and at that point, they had something like 10,000 registered Greens, registered as Greens. And they said only 50 of them ever did anything. So I think figuring half of that 40K is a little optimistic.
Oh, no. I mean, it is a dream. But what I'm trying to say is that henceforth is the challenge of organizing, right? Of making a reality check with ourselves to try to figure out, how can we get. If there are 40,000 people who believe in what we stand for enough to vote for us, then we have a captive audience just waiting to be organized to the next level of mobilization and militancy. Now, clearly, it's not going to be 40,000, but it remains a hopeful figure nevertheless, and a challenge for us, I think, organizationally. Because we have to aim, so we got Michael and go ahead, Mike.
Just a point about Maine, and I hope you're not going to say this later and destroy your point, but although there's 40,000 people registered there as Greens, only like 14,000 people voted to sign up.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's interesting how many registers there are. How many people actually vote Green? How many people who are Green are actually members or active?
Right.
I think you'd see a pyramid, kind of a thing there, a pyramid with very small active number, a little bit larger. We have like under 40% voting turnout of Greens in Maryland. So a lot of our potential for growth is even within our own people showing up.
Yeah.
So that's pretty, that's the first area we can get some expansion.
Yeah, and I believe, there is also just this whole notion of mobilizing, I think the politics of fear are only going to get worse.
Yes.
And so we're going to have to start organizing around the politics of fear. And part of organizing around the politics of fear, in my opinion, is organizing politically and not necessarily always electorally. Because people may still want to support the party. People may still want to come out and volunteer. People may still want to pay dues. But then when they enter into that voting booth, and they've been told that the future of their children, so there are a multiplicity of tiers of challenges when it comes to how do you build the party with the political capital that we have at our disposal, and how do we build the party with an understanding that perhaps an electoral sort of end result that is immediate, may not necessarily be what we're after, in order to build the party and to build certain parties in certain states that are not going to be there, especially in the South, right? And so, to me, there is this question remains critical for us to continue to have this type of discussions about.
On one other layer, I didn't mention, like Margaret Flowers ran for Senate. She got 90,000 votes. We have like 4,000 Greens in the whole state. So a lot of our votes come from non-Greens. It'd be interesting to know, if we could, where they're coming from. So while we get a small percentage of Greens showing up, we get a lot more votes than Greens. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think we have. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Well, just briefly, I'd like to say that the options to green, it seems to me, are shrinking, and that our determination is growing. So I am not at all pessimistic.
There we go. There's no room for pessimism.
My jaw is set.
I must agree. Look, I'm having a party already in anticipation of our victories. All right, folks. So, okay, this one I think it's been going on. It's taking on like wildfire across the country. The debate, the dilemmas. We just had some issues in Texas, which led me to really leave our convention on this particular issue kind of confounded. Now, perhaps everyone has had similar experiences. Perhaps there are states, as you can tell, that responded, that have membership dues. 5 states considering. That was us. Texas was considering, and we got voted down. It was it got tabled, and it was. And it was left at the discretion of the county parties at this point in time. Now, again, in the last slide, I was talking about, how do we support ourselves? How do we don't take corporate money? How do we make ourselves a viable political force? Are we not going to be able to have organizers hired? We need volunteerism has limitations. There's only so much that we can accomplish through volunteerism, and if we don't figure out a way to sustain ourselves, and there are other, but we basically were told that for those folks who were proposing, I see, for the folks who were proposing, the membership dues, that it was classist, that it was racist, that somehow this is not what the party was created for. I share a personal story of my own, and I was told that, a union is not the same as a political party, but, I didn't understand what that was meant to say. But during the end of the Spanish Civil War, my great uncle, who was a member of the CNT, which is the sort of anarchist labor union in Spain, and they had been under attack, and he paid the family had practically nothing left to eat, and he paid his dues up until the time that he had to leave the country in exile. And I know because I have his membership card. Now, what does that, so I started to understand that there are very different cultural paradigms at approaching this. And that we really need to step up a respectful and educated discussion with all of our comrades about this. Because without some, and this is just one of the aspects for beginning to create a consciousness and an understanding of what it means to be a member of a political party, which is not a club, which is not a reading circle, which is not an NGO or a community-based organization. Right? There are many different things that we need to really institute in order for us to, I believe, begin to work as a political party, and perhaps this is one of those things. Would anybody, Jody, let's open it up.
I'll be brief. About 6 or 7 years ago, the Green Party of Washington State decided by a very narrow margin to do away with dues. This was on the basis that that would encourage membership. The party absolutely collapsed, and we were on caretaker status for 2 years. And because when people pay dues, they feel they belong, that the group is theirs. We have a financial hardship at this time waiver, which when we were affiliated with GPUS you had to have that to be affiliated. So people can pay or they can do a hardship waiver, and they're all members on an equal basis. But when we didn't have dues, nobody felt that the party was theirs, and it collapsed.
Mm-hmm. There's chairs here, folks.
And they require that we have a waiver.
So Andrea and who else had their hands up? Yes, and we go around this way.
So Colorado, we have just under 14,000 registered Greens in Colorado. Sniper Rock said we've got 38,000 votes, and our local chapters, nearly all of them take dues, right? And I just have to say that, I mean, I can kind of echo what Jody was saying. Just the simple fact of being able to pay for meeting space because of dues is one of the most important outreach events, and we have to think in terms of our own personal bandwidth, right? We don't have full-time volunteers who man an office, staff in office, so we have to, a lot of times, the only thing that our local chapters can do is have that monthly meeting, or however often it gets scheduled. And if you don't even have the basic resources to be there once a month, regular, the new people that come in off of the street, I don't know how you think that we can grow. And so I understand the arguments that people have against dues. I understand too that people, think that there's this excited pool of donors out there that's ready to give to us, so we don't have to collect dues. But the thing is, we have to find that sweet spot between the two opinions, right? We still need resources to do our work. And so, I would really encourage people to listen to what Jody just said, to really just look at the evidence in places where there are dues, and really make an informed decision about whether or not we can continue this unsustainable practice of not funding our work.
We go here, and then Gloria, and was somebody else here in the middle? Oh, no. Okay, all right. Yes?
Okay, so I'm Julie with Green Party New Jersey, and we recently had a bylaws amendment up for a vote to instate a mandated annual dues of $36 a year with a financial hardship waiver for anyone who wasn't able to pay that, and it failed. And I'm completely dumbfounded as to why. New Jersey has been growing exceedingly over the past year. We have a lot of new members, we have a lot of activists and organizers, and we have 16 chapters now. And yes, people are paying dues, it's not mandated, but it is an unsustainable organization, a political party. I mean, we need staffers, we need paid fundraisers on staff, and to rely on people who either work full-time or people who are unemployed and volunteering their time, or people who are working part-time, or students also volunteering their time, it's not gonna work. It's unsustainable. People burn out. There's not enough hours in the day. So I was upset about it. I know a lot of other Jersey Greens were upset about it, but we're gonna continue to push the dues paying, even though it's not in the bylaws. So hopefully we can pass that vote next year.
I think Bruce was next, and then we're gonna go here and then back to Gloria, because we had a stack, Gloria, so we're gonna come back around after we finish the circle, come back to you.
Wisconsin should be up there with one of the yes states. I don't know why our leadership didn't answer your survey. But we've always had dues, and it's always been a consistent, not a lot of people, 300 to 400 people. I mean, since we became a party in '88. And one of the things about these that I know I find out from calling people for re-up the membership, is that's their contribution to the party. A lot of people don't like going to meetings. That's one of the problems Greens have. You gotta realize, there's people that make their living going to meetings 8 hours a day, and they don't want to go to another meeting.
Yeah.
But they will pay us dues for us to go to meetings and have meetings, you know. And it's always been consistent. There's 300 to 400 people. It allows us to we don't have any paid staff, but it allows us to continue to function. And I don't know how else we can do it. When we have the waiver and everything, it's $24 a year. But it's a way for people to invest in us, help us do the work. And they're happy to do it.
Yeah, and some of these amounts that I'm hearing are negligible, really. I mean, my union dues are like that every month. Chris?
So Illinois had dues from its founding in 1999 until my first membership meeting in 2013 when they got rid of them. And they moved to a sustainer model. My recollection of that state meeting was about how impossibly hard it was to keep people up. They would die, and then there were a lot of energy was put in going and getting those dues, like Bruce had just talked about. And so they moved to a sustaining model. I can say that it's definitely on our mind now to move back. We are at a point financially right now on the sustainer model that we don't think we're going to be able to we're worried about being able to pay our 3 part-time staffers next time payday comes around. The last 2 months, those part-time staffers have been paid because of $2,500 donations by an individual member. So a member, one of our members who knows that we have staff that helped us go from 6 locals at the beginning of 2017 to 21 locals now. They know that we got that because of our staff, and so an individual is funding the entire staff for 2 months in a row. He is also a $500 a month sustainer. So we are living off of the few privileged people we have, and it is not a sustainable model.
Right.
And the reality of going from 5 locals to 21 in such a short period of time, there hasn't been time to really monetize those locals. So to use a capitalist term there, they're really just getting off their feet. It's 3-4 people. They're not going to be feeding us a lot of sustainers at this point because they're still growing.
Yeah. Gloria and yeah. What?
We forgot my friend.
Which friend?
He had a question.
Okay, let me just get back to Gloria. We're gonna get around. I'm not gonna forget anybody. But a lot of people raised their hands, and
There's a whole breakout session on dues tomorrow.
Yeah, and I wanted one more thing. I am going to before this ends. I want to remind you that I have formed a national political organizing collaborative, of which this is a critical aspect of. So, at the end of the presentation, you will have my email address, and I would encourage you to take this message back to your leadership. We need to start collaborating, and we need to start working towards getting on the same page about a multiplicity of shared issues, because this is not about minding each other's business. We have identified concurrent themes that are of value and of importance, at least to almost like all the 21 states that we surveyed, and I intend to go after the remaining 20 because I am convinced that we're going to find these trends. And this will help us all once and for all realize that while we are a federation of independent state parties, we are also a national party, and we're also sister parties, and we're also one party. And there is no strength without union. And we can no longer keep functioning like this political Medusa, right? So I know that everybody, I mean, this is fantastic, the amount of response that we're getting to just this one issue, but, we got a lot more to cover, so I'm going to honor the last round, so I'm going to finish with everybody who raised their hands, and then we're going to continue. So let's go, Gloria, and then we'll find our way around there, and we just go around until we finish here on this end.
Thanks, I'm sorry to be late, going to our co-chair of the Green Party of New York. I'm not just going to say, we're not up there, we do have to, we've had it for a while, it's not mandatory, we call it supporting them to do sliding scale. I agree with how you on to other things. Remember, what I really want to say is in the other room, it was more of an informal discussion with kind of new Greens and asking within some Green Party leaders and just getting some information and what it's like to be new to the party. So I encourage them to come, and some of them have come in here. So I know you have probably a set agenda, but I want to recognize that there may be opportunities here for those of us who've been in the party for a long time to get some responses and hear something from new people who join the party.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Gloria. Yes, sir.
I wish the study could be conducted on the objection, the motivation, the reason behind it. People living in Massachusetts do not understand. I know that we need to finance many activities. There are problems in Massachusetts having to do with state regulation of political money. Who is allowed to have it, who is not allowed to have it, and so forth. What I do not understand is the fear of having to use. And I feel that I need to understand this better, because to me it's logical that you put money where your mouth is. And there are too many institutions that have to be built, that cannot be built without finance.
Yeah.
So please find some way, or surveying, or studying.
Well, we know
what the problem is.
We know what the problem is. We just need to make sure that we get on the same page about how to respond to those objections. But I think it's emerging. So let's just take three or four more, because we are really beginning. I think what do we have? Like, this is an hour. How much time?
We have to 3:45.
Okay, 3:45. So let's go ahead and see if we can, unless you have something very distinct to say. Hold on, sir. Yes.
In this discussion, we're talking about growing the Green Party by going into getting minorities in poverty area. And if we're going to be growing in the poverty area, minority area, then we're going to be asking for money. I think we're not going to grow the party that well. Now, I've been in the party for about a year. I've never been asked for any money. I started a sustained, what they call it, sustained, where send money to the Green Party. I think we should push a sustained program, not a required dues, but a sustained program, and call something like a 2-4-6 program, $2 to the local, $4 to the, something like that, and give people different options. You can do 1, 2, 3 or something like that, or any type of sustainable type of program, and push it to the members. I never was asked. So if we start pushing and asking, but it's not required, we'd probably be able to grow with some of the people who can't afford it.
Thank you.
We do not have a region based layer, and for many years we did, and maybe 4 or 5 years ago, at most, maybe 3 years ago, we got rid of it.
of strange because you're not really, getting, renewals, so you don't know, improve your listings anymore. And, we do reach out to money. I'd love to see some of these states that do have membership dues, to look at those bylaws and see how it works with non-mandatory sessions. Because every state has different pension finance laws, so as far as donating to a local or whatever, that would all be.
All right, so,
I wanted to touch a little bit on what John said, because I've been doing a lot of boots on the ground organizing in Michigan. And we are targeting low-income areas. And I agree that, in the low-income areas we're targeting, they might not be receptive to an initial message of paying dues. And what we really want to do there at the door, when we knock on the door and we ask the Green Party if we're going to chat, is to make a connection. And Craig had posted something very interesting about a week and a half back. Our friend, we can look to our friends in the UK and their model, because the UK gets substantial amounts of fundraising from dues, because they have two different designations, and that is a friend of the Green Party or a member of the Green Party. And so you wouldn't have to pay anything to sign up and be a friend of the Green Party and get our information and get connected.
Right.
And then we could start to organize those people and bring them into our local and engage them to the point where they want to become a dues-paying member of the party. And I think that is a very viable solution to the dilemma that we're facing.
so I don't want to cut anybody else short, but, we could very well spend the whole rest of this presentation on this issue alone. So unless it's really, really pressing, I mean, this is not going to end here. And I believe that these ideas are very dynamic and they're very much rooted at the foundation of our organizing strategies. But I'd like to, if you all allow me to, so please, I don't want to silence anyone. So if you have something really, really pressing to say, please go ahead.
I just asked for clarification, because she said the party was failing after the Green Party, but it was because of the dues or without the dues. No, not you. I thought it was from me. I thought you said $36 a year. Me? Oh, no, the vote failed. The vote failed. Okay, got it.
Okay, so, brother, you had your hands raised.
No, it's okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, so is it okay? Nobody's feelings will get hurt if we proceed? Okay, all right, excellent. So, so very interesting. This leads right into this, right here, right? Best practices, right? Somebody I would love to, I think it was you, Luann, that said that you would love to have resource. Okay, so basically that's missing. Right now, we don't really have a process or a mechanism by which more developed states can directly collaborate with less developed states. And that those lessons become interchangeable and are facilitated in some kind of comprehensive and systemic way. We're doing a lot of real good improvisation. We're improvising real well, and personal relationships are there. But right now, we have, for instance, some general kind of tools and resources available on our web, but the kind of direct support that I believe is most effective between organizer and organizer, and between leadership and leadership, those are not necessarily in place. So clearly, the typical response, from the survey was no, but we could use resources. We know they exist, and we love to not have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, yes, Travis.
Another critical response. A lot of states said, yeah, we're currently working on it. So.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, they're also putting out a million other fires now. A lot. There's only so many people, and we'll see further on about all the burnout.
And this is one of the things that I can think a position like mine that's been created can best serve, our collective interest, right? Because it's practically impossible for any state leader to be able to keep a bird's eye view. So what I have found myself doing, without really having a plan, is to connect people. Let me give you all an example. Our state of Tennessee is in dire straits right now. I just received a phone call from the last remaining chair of the party saying, Adrian, we need to have this conversation because as of right now, I am about to throw in the towel. Yesterday my co-chair resigned, my treasurer resigned, my secretary resigned, and like, I'm done, like, I can't, and I'm like, let's take a deep breath together. And I said, look, just, if you can secure me a meeting with the remaining loyal Greens that you do have at your disposal, and I will mobilize all the support that you need. I will bring the heaviest punchers that I can gather. I will ask Andrea to join the call. I will ask Gloria to join the call. I will ask everybody that I can get my hands on that I know from my experience.
Organizer, not as a puncher.
No violence. One has to be so careful these days with what says.
Can you elaborate what's going on in Tennessee?
Basically, a lot of frustration and a lot of a sense that we as a party are not a viable political force. That, like, people are spending their wheels. That there are some folks joined the party and they are experiencing turmoil and they're experiencing sort of dynamics that they don't see as perhaps conducive towards the development of a functional party, and that perhaps they're better off staying in their own communities, doing their local work at the school district level, at the healthcare level, than actually putting energy into a pipe dream. Now, the problem is that we all know that it's not a pipe dream. We all know that without a viable third political force in this country, nothing is going to change. We can perhaps change some things at the micro level, but we need systemic changes to systemic problems, and we need them to be bigger than just whatever it is that I can do in my little corner of the universe. Not to say that those things are mutually exclusive. So I will mobilize on behalf of Tennessee. And I will get on the case of every single one of my trusted comrades until I get them on the phone or they respond by text. And then I will show up at this conversation with our dear comrade in Tennessee with as big of a team as I can assemble quickly, because he basically needs it quickly. Now, I mean, this is not the kind of thing that is a systemic solution to this kind of problem. We need to start getting at the root of what's happening and be a lot more proactive. So again, perhaps if the state of Tennessee had a structure already in place, perhaps if we had a structure already in place, so that I could have been more attentive, because I would have known that Tennessee, I want to be able to start mapping the country in like states that need critical attention, try to figure out what strengths and what weaknesses, and start matching strengths and weaknesses, right? But it's going to require a radical change in how we view party building. That's going to be, it's like, oh my God, another working group. It's like, oh, I really don't have the time. I got to go do this, I got to do that. So somewhere along the line, I am envisioning a transition in our party to where people will understand that we are Tennessee, that I cannot go back to Texas and pretend that I'm a member of a national political party while I see a sister party like go defunct because like people are too busy to support our warriors on the ground who are desperately asking for help, because we are stuck in like a weird sort of decentralized, almost, very, very loose federation. And we need to eventually redefine what it means to be members of a federation when the federation is meant to generate unity.
Yeah.
Right? So sorry. Okay, so I will open this up. All of this to say that we have states that have done incredible work. And we need to make sure that we create the mechanisms necessary so that we have the capacity to share resources, and I want to make that a big part of my job. I want to be able to do that. If that alone is almost a full-time gig, but I think it's more than worth it.
Yeah, real quick, I can say I got contacted by a member of another state party, and I assume he was reaching out to me as a member of the SC, assuming that National would have this kind of resource, but he wanted basically a data share contract that you would have with the contract, or that you would sign with a candidate, where we will provide you our lists and you will provide yours at the end of the campaign in return. And as far as I know, at National, we don't have that.
A what?
Like a data share agreement.
No.
And so my
Not that I
quickest
know.
avenue in Illinois was to contact the former chair that is a lawyer, and he said, oh yeah, we wrote one of those in 2015, we never actually used it. So I was able to send that on. But yeah, having a centralized repository for this would be incredible.
Right. I mean, the centralized repository or whatever, but at the same time also, I think
networks just
the network. I mean,
What
the
happened?
network. Yeah,
Yeah.
the network, because we can create data bank upon data bank upon data bank. What is really necessary, in my opinion, is the living, thriving networks amongst organizers and amongst the militancy of the party, right? Because those are the folks who are going to use the information the most, and those are the folks who are going to benefit the most from each other's experiences. Now, this is the false dichotomy to end all false dichotomy. Now, how in the world? Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. No, I'm ready now. Go ahead, sir.
How are you going to deal with the problem of a culture of competitive excellence and the insistence on equality?
Wow.
In the party in which
Let me sit down for that one.
in the party in which I work, this kind of work is regarded as status seeking, as doing more than somebody else in order to achieve status. There is a culture of preventing people from doing more than somebody else. The problem of so-and-so doing more, making use of more resources of time, for instance, is met with hostility. Older people in the party who no longer have to earn a living are not used. I'm speaking from direct experience, but I'm also speaking from the point of view of a party that produced Jill Stein, but then turns around and worries about the influence she exercises. How do we build locals if the people who want to build locals are looked at with suspicion, either because they're white, or because they're old, or because they're Hispanic, or because they're this, or there are always excuses to interfere with organizing? How do you deal with the culture of competitive excellence and status seeking?
I think Jody wants to take a crack at that.
I always tell people, the Green Party has a real history of letting people who want to work do so. And that generally shuts people up. If someone wants to work, far be it from me to get in their way. And if someone wants to get in the way, I'll go talk to them.
So, I mean, I would love to get into that a little bit further, but I believe, and it's an interesting point, and I don't believe it's uniform. I believe there are, it's very broad, it's very diverse. I mean, the dynamics of a party that has not yet made a commitment to be a revolutionary party will continue to haunt us. What do I mean by that? In my opinion,
Look at our.
no. Let me answer to the best of my ability. I believe that there are sort of transformations that occur inside each one of us, and this word that's being thrown around, revolution and revolutionary, sometimes begins to lose meaning. All I can share with you is that I do believe that the transformation is possible, that we can get to a point where once comrades' victories become your victories, okay? And this has happened in my experience as well. I hate to say this, but ultimately we have to learn how to eliminate that competitiveness. We have to learn how to turn that into collaboration. And we have to, that tension needs to be replaced with love and compassion and empathy. people begin to hoard resources and people begin to want to self-advance and self-aggrandize most of the time when they are subjected to huge pressures of marginalization and exclusion. And that's what our society has created for most of us. We have to heal all that. So we have to heal it on the road. We have to be able to move towards and that transformation is a challenge for each one of us. That pang of jealousy when it's not us that is on CNN, but like the comrade who showed up 5 minutes earlier, that has to be eliminated. That, you know, it's like, oh my God, my mom is not going to see me on the news, and like, oh my gosh, she may only live another year, and you know, that punk was there before. No, I have to get over all of that, and I have to be able to open my heart and say, he, she is me. And that is part of the socialist transformation. In my opinion, that is the socialist mindset. That is the socialist construct of how we view humanity and how we view one another. But that's a different workshop, and you know, and I'm, you know, and oh, by the way, that's Adrian as the Texas rep, not as staff. Next, oh man, that was rough. So here we go. Look, so again, back to the false dichotomy, right? At what point did we get to this? At what point why did I have to ask this question on the survey?
Look at the movement. The movement's grown so fast, so quickly, that we're pulled every which way. You've got ex-burners, you've got people that might have just been independent, not affiliated, that are probably just tired of the two-party system and need a home, and this is it. So our states are doing the best they can. They're trying to grow as fast as they can. And some have structure, some don't have structure, some need help. That's where national has to come in, and they have to come together and help and advise. I think national needs to start having options on the page, or like special forums like artists, graphic designers, activists, Green Party activists, that if you need, like you have a problem in Tennessee, you can get some of us that are maybe 20s, 30s that have no problem going down there with you, just to be faces and bodies and talk to people. We should be able to have that flow. State leaders need to be able to get together and have a handbook with national and have all these other states kind of on the same page. I don't see why we need to go on and on about dues for God knows how many years. Nip it in the bud. It's 2017. Everybody get together, hash it out. We're here. Hash this thing out tomorrow if that's the case, and come out with a policy. And this is what the national party's policy is going to be. And this is what we want all the states to try to follow. We are people that sometimes want to feel that we're going to put our time and effort in, it's going to be appreciated, and we want to see some reward for it. Now, again, it could be on small little incremental things, like I'm helping my county with helping a food bank or doing this or that, or I can help a campaign. We can do everything. And there's some people that may only want to sit on social media. That's great. We need advocates on social media that can go in and help boost profiles of campaigns. Utilize everybody.
Yeah.
But we need to get a pool. We need to work on our websites and then have those little portals where we can kind of dip in and offer our services and our strengths and utilize each other and be able to move and flow.
What state are you in, brother?
New Jersey.
Okay, excellent. Yes.
We can't read what those three things at the bottom.
Okay. So, all right. So, electoral politics.
Well, we can't hear him either. Go ahead. So you get on.
Okay. So, electoral politics is the light green. Movement and party building is the dark green, and this is both. Okay. So, I think Andrea had her. No. Okay. Yeah, bro.
So, I mean, it's well enough to say it's a false dichotomy. I agree, we do need both. And I very much agree with the proposition that if someone wants to, if the building wants to get out and carry a banner, wants to get out and protest, we should certainly support them in doing that and get out there and do it with them. Where I run into a problem as co-chair of a state party, as someone who works in a local, there are only so many hours, there's only so much energy. And when I've got people asking for the agenda at a meeting, should be centered around this political campaign that we need to be supporting here locally, and also around this opportunity for a protest or some other social movement coming up. I have to somehow juggle the claims on everyone's energy.
Yes.
And at that point, I do have to say, well, it's not a false dichotomy, it is a dichotomy, and we have to choose.
Right.
And when that happens, I fall down on the side of electoral politics.
All right. So let me.
Wait, just,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry
brother,
to
go ahead.
chime in. But in your case, you mentioned the other seminar about the KKK thing that happened. Wouldn't it have been great if you had a contact at National and said, look, I'm working, but this is going on, I need people, can we tap into something nationally, like the people that are willing to hop in a car, drive down for a weekend and attend a
And
rally?
that's great, but I also have to take time
Okay.
at a minimum, in a teleconference meeting, pulling in locals, because we operate democratically, I can't.
Okay,
you know,
so
autocratically
folks,
do this thing.
let me say something here. So this is how I look at it from my position. Electoral politics, and in this case, movement building, should have been separated here because they are both components of party building, and they are part of a strategic plan, or they should be part of a strategic approach towards building the party. So that what you are always doing both. In other words, first of all, let's define what is movement building. What are we talking about? We're not talking about just showing up somewhere with a banner or whatever. We're talking about sort of building a movement, in our case, towards building the party. So in some ways, again, we have to make the transition that the Green Party is not an NGO. The Green Party is not a community-based organization. The Green Party is a political party. And therefore, as a political party, every militant in the party needs to be almost like tunnel visioned, no matter where you are. Wherever, when I'm in Texas, when I'm in Austin, and I got you, and I attend a meeting in my community, I am looking around and I'm recruiting in my mind. I am recruiting 24 hours a day, and I'm gathering resources for the party. And I go to, we had a fantastic guy run for city council. He's not a Green. He comes from the Democratic background. He's a progressive young Democrat full of great ideas. I went to his inauguration party. I shook hands with everybody, and I'm recruiting. And I'm recruiting the whole time. And I'm like, so what do? You do printing. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so there's like some free printing stuff there. So we're doing it all the time. So you will have to eventually, but the false dichotomy doesn't come from sometimes having to make a decision as to how you allocate resources at that particular point. What I'm talking about is that it becomes, I got you, Gloria, it becomes a false dichotomy when this begins to happen outside of a strategic approach towards party building. And somehow we keep forgetting, we keep getting sidetracked. We cannot run a campaign, without building the movement, because we're building the party. So we need to have people everywhere. There should not be one single progressive organization in your community that does not have a Green Party person in it. We have to learn from our Trotskyist comrades. This is how they did it. It's the French turn approach, folks. You have to, when your party's small and you're getting your ass kicked and you have limited resources, you have to infiltrate. And it's not negative infiltration, it's positive infiltration. And if this language offends people, then I'm sorry, but it's a political reality. And you can be transparent about it. Everybody knows who I am. I don't go around doing it behind closed doors and pretending that I'm not who I am. I don't do it in this party, and I don't do it outside either. But you have to be respectful. And don't ever be disingenuous in the people that you support, because those are our people. We're not using them. We're trying to build a party because we have a conviction that this is the party of transformation and change. We're not doing it from a disingenuous space in our hearts. It's not treachery. But the moment you begin to disrespect the people that you're working with, that you're building movement with, and if the Green Party is seen, so also short-term versus long-term. So we may not be able to get our candidate elected in the next election because we haven't done the work. And we didn't do a lot of the work that we needed to do during the campaign either, to work with the constituencies that later on we expected to. You have to build the relationships. There's no way around it. So you have to roll up your sleeves and you have to be present in the communities. And when the communities, like we're doing in Travis County, when the communities begin to identify you as the only political party who's consistently there, who works with the community, they're like, when you show up and you run a candidate, you're not just parachuting in. We do too much parachuting, right? So we have a meeting of the same 4 or 5 people, then election comes around, we pick somebody, and about 4 or 5 months before the election, we show up in these communities and we say, you need to vote for us. Especially communities of the disenfranchised who have been subjected to this kind of political opportunism for centuries. It doesn't fall well. So again, it's all part of the same thing. We run candidates to build the party. We build the movement to build the party. We're building the party, and eventually it all begins to coalesce. Sorry for the rant. That was way too long. Yes, sir.
Quickly.
Oh, sorry. I had Gloria first. Let me, sorry. Go ahead, Gloria.
Thank you. Adriana, I appreciate kind of emphasizing on party building and recruiting openly. I think the other piece that needs to be talked about, and I think that as Greens we often struggle with, or we need a better understanding, is the difference between mobilizing and organizing. Because my experience in my state party and the local, there's a little confusion about that. And on a simplistic level, it's like mobilizing. Hey, there's a rally, against the pipeline. So like, we're all gonna run down there, right, and do that. When we could have been door knocking, someone should have been entering something in the database and all that, right? That's the build the party. But organizing takes much longer, and we can't consider that is like how many Greens are going to that that pipeline rally? Do you have a piece of literature that can talk about what our position is? Because we know we're going to be there with a lot of liberal organizations that are going to have a softer position. Is there an opportunity for speakers? Are you going to push for that? Are you going to have your own little slide thing? And those things don't happen. Every weekend you can go out and mobilize.
Right.
But it's deciding where you're organizing, and then of course the organizing, you're talking about more in-depth in communities. It's going to be another thing. And I think that could be an important conversation to continue having, and ways of sharing that kind of information among state parties and locals. When are you organizing to party them? And to connect with us, with organizations and people in certain struggle, and when are you just showing up to be green, which is nothing wrong, right? But it's something like, as leaders, how are you helping people make that decision, or how are you having a democratic discussion in your local or your state party about when we do which one?
That is an excellent point. I'm going to write that down, Gloria. Sir, yes, and let's see if we can hear from other voices as well. Yes, please, go ahead.
Here in Massachusetts, the problem is a very real one, because any movement building means forming NGOs. The minute you form an NGO, the rewards are immediate. First of all, it's easy to raise money because you're not under the control of the state apparatus, the Democratic Party, one-party apparatus.
Right.
Secondly, the low status of people elected to the state government in Massachusetts, especially in legislative office, is remarkable. Idiots get elected, incompetents get elected.
The presidencies.
Yes, this provides a precedent for the Green Rainbow Party in Massachusetts to put people in positions of responsibility who are incapable of fulfilling them, and maligning people who might be able to. The maligning almost resembles the way in which Democratic Party members treat each other, or Republican Party members behave toward each other. This is what I mean by a culture of competitive action.
No, I hear you, and I believe that most people here share some similar sentiments, and I think we need to start moving towards a different culture. Now, let me go ahead and we got about 5 minutes left, and we got. Does your state have any caucuses? You know, clearly, I mean, this. I think out of the 21 responses, we got 3 states that said they did. Clearly, again, back to organizing. You know, the caucuses are not a political correct indulgence, right? I mean, you know, caucuses are an organizing tool and a mechanism for party building. So a caucus is supposed to be a group of comrades that know what needs to be done, you know, in their own specific communities, you know, to create the kind of community power that we want to create. And so, again, you know, the creation of caucuses are definitely, in my opinion, fundamental. And that's another thing that I would like to do more, is to start working with our national caucuses so that we can start creating caucuses across the country. Nation builder, technology. Here we go. Like, you know, almost half and half. Half of the states do not have, you know, the technical expertise to properly use Nation Builder. Nation Builder is just one of many things. This is just, you know, the tip of the iceberg, right? We need proper mechanisms. I don't believe that technology organizes, but technology in this time and age surely, you know, supports, you know, organizing. And so this is a good flag. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, let me just see make sure. You know, here we go. I mean, this is something that I wish that you know, I could have gotten to sooner. You know, these are the party building challenges that were identified, of course, as fundraising, not organized enough, burnout, not able to properly influx of volunteers. You mentioned that, right? So we got, you know, the need to cultivate more leaders. So these are all to reduce the influence of toxic members. There you go. You know, 21 states agree with you. You know, we got this, and then, and interestingly enough, I found this. So not organized enough is a feature here. It's number 2, but then here when we say how can GPUS help this, nobody really is asking us for organizing support. You know, people want fundraising support. They want, you know, they want us to send speakers. They want basic guides, but basically, you know, tech support. But I do believe, you know, there is a lot to be said for direct organizational support, or you know, in terms of this particular capacity. Now, so typical response: many of us have no political backgrounds and are learning everything for the first time. This is something that I was talking to Jan earlier, because she just finished forming a structure working group. And I'm really looking forward to, for the organizing collaborative to work closely with this emerging structure working group, because I believe that while not one and the same, they are obviously, as we're learning throughout this discussion, party structure and organizing capacity are incredibly interconnected, right? Yes, go ahead, brother.
So there's facilitate communication between leaders of state parties. So you guys are sitting in the hotel rooms tonight at 10 o'clock at night working on this?
10 o'clock at night tonight.
Like breaking out and all leaders getting together and trying to hash out and try to, and again, figure out a way to make members feel directly connected. If that's what people are saying is a problem, that has to be resolved.
Well,
here.
yeah. Well, I mean, this one right here, the one you mentioned to me, is one of the most critical, to be able to facilitate, to me, not just communication, but actual interaction and collaboration between leaders of state parties. And that's why I created the collaborative, and that's what we're going to try to do with Tennessee. So yeah, I mean, this is basically, I mean, at least for me, you know, I just.
What are we going to do to get this accomplished, or some of these attended to while we're here?
Okay, well, I am going to.
If I could just, you know, so these major decisions like this need to be by our bylaws decided by the national committee. And so there's a process for offering proposals, we have to vote on it, there's a discussion period. So we certainly need to brainstorm while we're here, and then the job that we need to do, those of us who are NC delegates, is to collaborate on language and to gel it into proposals.
But you don't need language.
Yeah, hold on. Let me answer your question. Wait, hold on, folks. Wait, hold on, folks. Hold on. Because, for instance, one thing, this one. This, I'm already talking to people, yes, between now and Sunday, I am meeting with as many people as I invited to meet with me to start making this happen. So that when we walk out of here, because there are limits, right? So for instance, I am not this. You know what I mean? I am this. I am not this. I am not this because I am, as a national organizer, I got this one under my belt and I've taken ownership of that one and I'm trying to make that happen. So hold on a second, any state leaders who are here who want to join the National Political Organizing Collaborative, just talk to me between now and Sunday because I want to start nailing this down. There are a couple of people who are here who've already joined. So anybody but it has to be, this is the deal. We don't want to start shooting from the hip, so we need to have you be representing your state. So if the state leaders cannot come or cannot participate in the collaborative, make sure they delegate you and they give you the authority to participate. So you are representing your state and you're not just a lone ranger. Because that's another thing that's like plaguing our party, people who represent no one but themselves, assuming positions of power and authority that are not due to them. This was meant to be a collaborative among state leaders. But if the state leaders cannot attend, but they love the idea, and I believe that's what happened in Michigan, and that's why Aaron has joined, the collaborative. So let's do it, man, for sure. So hold on a second. Was there something else, bro?
Well, there's just I've sat in 3 seminars and there's no basic standard graphics templates. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You've got people here that probably are computer graphic designers or artists that can do this.
I got an idea. We have a communications committee. And basically, all you need to do is to talk to your state leadership, and they can delegate you, and you can take almost like, you can assume leadership. That's what Jody was saying. This is something I've learned. None of the committees that exist block work. If somebody joins one of our committees, whatever committee it is, you will be allowed to bring this into, the structures are there, they're not missing. I don't know, so basically, are they?
I'm not talking state level, I'm talking national.
No, national level. No. We have a national communications committee. And so if you get your party to delegate you and assign you to that committee, you can hit the road running and everybody's going to embrace it. I don't think anybody in the communications committee will block. Your ideas are good ideas, and we need the work and we need the support. We just don't have the resources, and people are burning out. You saw the thing about burnout, right? Burning out means that we haven't regenerated our party quick enough. We haven't done a real good job at integrating young people. We need to have a much more comprehensive youth recruitment policy. So come on in. And I'm telling you, I can sense the frustration, but your frustration is not unique. If we went around, I can guarantee you that a lot of the same frustrations, but to give our party credit where credit is due, the committees do not block people's creativity, as far as I have been able to gather. So, if get New Jersey to get you into the committee.
My state's done a great job. We've done a great job there, and I'm happy to be in New Jersey working with them. I just want to help national.
Yeah, join the national committee. Okay.
So the point is the national communications committee.
Yeah, we'll hook you up, man. Just talk to me afterwards.
One of the other really common responses was that a lot of the committees are understaffed, or like they don't have enough volunteers on them. And I think the fundraising committee was specifically mentioned by multiple people, but a lot of people just said in general, like all the committees could use more volunteers.
Right, and now let's look at this. Very quick, folks, we're running out of time. On a scale from 1 to 5, the state leaders about their representatives at the National Committee. How satisfied are you with the performance of the National Committee? Okay, from 1 to 5.
1 being the worst.
One being the worst. Right, so the average was, a bunch of 2s and 3s, right? So it's average, but it's not good, right? This is not good, right? I mean, this is like, there's a whole bunch of people that are like, this is 2. So this is like a huge chunk of the pie of people who basically are not happy with how, the National Committee is doing its business.
Sorry, just for clarification, these surveys were filled out by state party chairs.
Chairs, yes, ma'am.
Chairs saying that they're not so happy with your.
Yes, exactly. This is, it's.
I'm just leaving that. I'm not.
No.
Leaving that in the air.
You know, so I mean, and this is the next one. You know, yes, Andrea, quick.
Real briefly, sometimes it's a governance issue, right? I mean, we have a personality that's on the NC perhaps, that's where the state party decides to send this person, because they're not doing any other work. And what I've seen in talking to state parties is that a lot of times the bylaws don't have a mechanism to bring that person back or hold them accountable, right? So a lot of this is a governance issue as well.
Governance and structural, yes, exactly. So here's a lot of the same things that we've been discussing all along. Do you find the national committees effective? So, no. Many committees are, so we know they're suffering, so we have little contact with the national committees. So this is, again, structural, governance issues. I will share with you guys the survey in completion, because we also asked, what are your mechanisms for staying in touch with your delegates? A lot of the states don't have any. So clearly there's going to be a huge disconnect when, you have delegates that are representing your collective voice, and then there is no mechanism in place for reporting or accountability or anything. So we have to we're working hard to hopefully out of this, if I want the other 20 states, or the other 20-something states, because I think that will start to complete the picture. And I'm hoping that in the hands of the National Committee and of the Steering Committee, will go a long way in helping us sort of begin to identify where we allocate our resources and where we place our targets towards some form of strategic plan. I would love to see a 5-year strategic plan emerge out of this type of product, compiled with some more additional research that will once and for all make our objectives scientific. So, our allocation of resources, our hiring of staff, how do we distribute the resources? How much money goes into the committees? That needs to be scientifically done. We've been shooting from the hip for too long, and I'm hoping that this is the beginning of that transformation. Chris?
Yeah, real quick on committees. So I can say this year we've seen, I think, 3 committees reboot nationally. Green Pages just put out their first issue in a couple years. That committee, I know, the editor resigned over a year ago, but there was no new editor to step up. Outreach and diversity also both rebooted. So we have taken the energy from 2016 and we're feeding it and we're trying to go. But an important thing to think about committees, we've got about 12 of them. Most of them, in my experience, have maybe 10, 15 active people if they're lucky, and if they're not, a half dozen people. Apart from ones like the CCC, which have bylaw restrictions on members, there can be like 150 members in each one of these committees, and we're sitting at 10. And so a lot of the problems we have with our state parties, we need I make monthly pitches to our coordinating committee and biannual ones to our state party that we need help. And if you're interested in media and graphic design, join the media committee. If you're interested in campaigns, join the CCC. Even if you're not one of the 10, you can be an observer. And there's a lot of need. As a people-powered party, we need the people.
Yeah. So the brother's been waiting patiently now for quite a while because he's over there and yeah, he's in the corner. So.
Justin with Rhode Island Green Party. I'm newer to the party. Some of the new members usually didn't. Sorry, stand up. So I'm newer to the party, and I noticed a slide that kind of got skipped over quickly, but it was basically the limiting factors of the Green Party, and one of them was how to influence the toxic people, and what do we do with that? And it seems like since I've been here, and since I've been involved online with the Green Party, and seen discussions back and forth, it seems like the biggest limiting factor here is that there's infighting, whether it's at the national level or local state parties. I've talked to so many different parties around the country, and that seems like the biggest thing. People are turned off, people are leaving, people don't want to join because they come into literally just horrible fighting within the party. And that goes with whether it's issues or just having an issue with just the person himself. But I feel like what is the national party, what is the national committee or level, what are they going to do if somebody's really toxic, what do you do? Instead of just being like, oh, that's just how they are. How do you address that? Is there a panel?
Well,
do they get barred? What do we do? It doesn't seem like that. It seems like there's so much infighting. It's the same people over and over again.
Okay. Let me try to complete this, and then I'm going to open it up. Look, hold on a second, folks. Hold on, because I want to restore a little bit of order. Let me finish this, and then we can open it up. Anybody who wants to stay, can stay, and we can. I will stay with everyone, and for as long as you guys want. But let me just go through this. Hold your questions and your thoughts, and see if we can at least get to the end of this. Where was I? How can the Green Party improve communication and transparency, supplying basic resources, coordinating between states, support local chapters directly? This is it, right? This is all that we've been talking about, and I feel so validated. I've had these conversations with Chris, with Andrea, even with John, right? It's like, this is now scientific. It's no longer just us having side conversations. This is how they want us to improve the party. 21 states at least in general. So, and I want to complete this process so that we can have all of the states, because I am convinced that this is it. Right here is what, they want us to do.
It says 1 of 2.
There, Joey. I'm not withholding information, Joey. Dissolve cliques of longtime members who know each other and don't listen much to the rest of us. So dissolving the cliques. Yeah, exactly. So more of a professional stuff, relying on volunteers only goes so far. We touched upon that. The funding committee is understaffed. Who was that? Yeah, we know that. I'm sure if Starlene was here, she would agree with us 100%. So anyway, so that brings us to the end. That's my address, folks. Please stay.
But there's another workshop in this room in 5 minutes.
Okay, here. We can, anybody who wants to continue the conversation, we can go outside.
Are you on Facebook?
No, yeah, but but wait a minute. Let me here. No, find me here. Adrian@gp.org. This is where the actually it's a horrible link for the Google Doc, but I want you guys to look at the completed survey, okay? And look, folks, just like the brother was saying here, this cannot. Hold on 1 second. This cannot end here. Okay, you have got to help me form and strengthen the national organizing collaborative amongst sister states. We have to build it up. It's not just another working group that is going to tax. It's meant to be a resource. And that's, I think, just a baby step in combination with what Jan is doing in the new structure working group. These are 2 key components that are going to start bringing us together, okay, towards greater collaboration and sharing on resources. In the absence of millions of dollars that we can just throw at our problems, all we have is our expertise and our commitment to one another, so that all of our parties begin to thrive and hopefully begin to move together towards one unified and powerful leftist revolutionary party. I think did you send me? Yes. Okay. So we should try to get together with as many folks as possible.